Hello and welcome, and in this video we should be covering the entire pond and everything it has inside of it, including the fish, which I've included in the video. So I'm just going to go over a few key features of this pond and just to give you a bit more of an understanding of what it's all about, and also a couple of things to look out for if you're thinking of building a pond yourself. Now this holds roughly 10,000 litres, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. It's made with concrete blocks which have rebar in them and have been filled with concrete. So this is a very strong structure. It's very thick, as you can see, holds back probably 10 tonnes of water. It's extremely strong. It's a bottom drain on the bottom. Well, it's got a bottom drain. And here's the skimmer. This is an in-the-wall skimmer with a bit of a bespoke job here. This feeds a 10,000 litres per hour pump, which is connected currently to an easy pod, which all the media in there is working away nicely. And down here is the electrical box. Got wires going everywhere in there, relatively waterproof. This is the UV unit. I do like to use a UV on most of my ponds, or else it kind of goes green very quickly. If you have a UV unit like this, which is quite a long unit, and you have an elbow here, and you have an obstruction up there in relation to this bulb, you need to be able to get the bulb out to replace it. To do that, I had to actually cut the pipe and put a rubber boot in place to swing this arm up to get the bulb out. So if you're designing a pond that has a UV, which is this sort of shape, just do bear in mind you need enough space to get the bulb out, because that caused me a lot of problems getting hold of the right size rubber boot, and the fittings on the end. It was really hassle I didn't want. So anyway, that's the filter system. We just got an easy pod and 4-inch bottom drain and skimmer feeding into that pump, which does very well. I also have this little Fishmate feeder called the P21. I'm only trying this out just to sort of increase the daily amount of food they get. Trying not to leave it too long before feeds to keep them growing while it's still warm, because they've got a fair bit to go yet, but they're getting there. And this is also a net system that I have. This is to keep out herons and cats, and also debris from trees and things. We've got quite a few trees around here which drop a few leaves. This keeps the leaves off. It also keeps the fish in, and this is the main purpose of it, to keep the fish inside the pond, because sometimes they do jump and they can get out, but with a net system they just bounce off the net onto the side and then hopefully flop back into the water. And so that's the idea of that. It does restrict access a little bit to the other half of the pond, but it's alright. It does for me. Until I come up with a better way of protecting the pond and stopping the fish from getting out, this is half will do. And then we come here. Now this is sort of the I call it an auxiliary filter, because it's just something I have on the side. I have a 70 litres per minute air pump that is always going 24/7, 365. Reason of that is because I have a sturgeon in here who needs a lot of oxygen. I also have barbel, and well, to be honest with you, you don't have any worries of oxygen when you got this going all the time. You really don't. It's great. And this is the filter, which is a bit of a mess at the moment, I have to admit. This is sort of a barrel that I put a load of holes in, and at the bottom of that barrel is a load of alpha grog and a pump, and that pump pumps up, which is 5,000 litres per hour, pumps to a Owaza filter clear, which is just full of sponges. That's just a giant sponge canister filter there. I don't use a UV on it, and then that feeds back into the pond, and the water gets in through these siphons, and siphons are kind of good for water level sort of applications such as this. The only thing you have to watch out for is when you're on a hot day, or when you think the water level's not quite right, feel the temperature of the pipes. If one of them's hot and the other's cold, the hot one is not working, and you need to get it going again. So if you're going to use siphons, just do watch out for that. And that's a con of a siphon, really, is that once air gets in, they do get blocked. And I'm not going to put any permanent sort of pipes in just yet, because I'm not 100% sure on this filter being here. And This is called an IBC tank. It holds roughly 1,000 litres. It's very, very strong. You can stand on this with no worries at all. It's made of a white plastic. They're used to contain various substances such as like oils, rapeseed oil, vegetable oil, sunflower oil, and also juices as well, like fruit juices. They're quite good. They're a little bit inaccessible in the sense that you can't really get to the bottom because you know it's quite deep, as you can see. And if you are thinking about getting one of these, just a word of warning is do make sure you know where it's coming from. Sometimes you can get one and this one had a rapeseed oil in it, and the trouble with that was the damn stuff never came off. I got through about 4 buckets of washing up liquid and hot water, scrubbing on my hands and knees, trying to get all this oil off. So if you are going to buy an IBC tank, just be prepared to really scrub it out, because they're not clean. They're rinsed, but they're not clean, and they do need to be cleaned before they go in. And it was also really sticky, which thankfully now is not. I agree, some of you may have like a pressure washer with foam or something and it's a doddle, but for me I did it the old fashioned way, and I got on my hands and knees and I scrubbed as you do. And this is my iris pseudochorus. I'm slowly incorporating plants into my ponds. I quite like the idea of a little bit of greenery around the edges. This is not the only plant I'm going to have. I'm going to think about putting a lot more in, but all this hopefully I'm going to be able to change. And I've got some bioballs down there which are supposed to be going round and round and round, and to a degree they do, but I think they've gone a bit stagnant lately. Here's one here. They do sometimes actually get pushed onto this little island, but that's alright, because this is hoping to change all this to a better system. And I'm hoping to have different plans for this tank, because it is quite useful. It does add a little bit of water to your pond. If you don't like the look of an IBC tank, you can get these rolled up bamboo shield things which you can buy, and then you can just put bamboo along the side, so it looks basically like that, but on the side of the tank. And that can help make it look more aesthetically pleasing. And as for the things you can do with an IBC tank, there is heaps of things you can do. And you can even use them as individual tanks, which I have done before in the past, and they do work quite well. But as I say, if you're going to get one, do be wary of where you get it from and what's been in it previously, because it is a major hassle cleaning them out. But they are quite good value, because they do stand on their own, they've got their own stand, and they are extremely strong. This is a liner pond, so it has a box welded liner in the actual pond itself. And the bottom drain I installed myself. Well, pretty much everything really. And there it is. That's the main pond in its entirety there. If you are wondering what this sort of foamy stuff around the edges of all the pond here, all around, it's actually pipe insulation which we put on, and for the sturgeon mainly, because he usually comes up along the side here, and he used to nudge these patio stones, which are actually quite sharp and jagged, and when he usually comes up with quite a force, he used to bump his nose on there. He used to cut his nose. He's cut his lip twice on it before as well, really nasty. And he's also had 2 really nasty gashes on the side, and that's when I decided that was enough, and I put this sort of padding on, and we haven't had a single problem since. It may not look the best, but I actually quite like it for some reason. I suppose it looks more like a unit with it all around, like a perimeter, but it is very soft. I think you find this pond actually safer than most swimming pools with this sort of insulation around the edges. You can't bump yourself anywhere, and I suppose that's the wonderful part of it. Oh, is it here? Oh no. So that's the reasoning for the insulation around the edges. I also have a smaller pond, which is here, which I use as a little growing pond. These only have small fish, minnows and things like that in there. They're to grow bigger to eventually go into the big pond with the big fish, but at the moment, their current size, I don't feel they're ready for the size of these fish. and also I don't want them going down the bottom drain or into the skimmer, quite frankly. So this is a small pond, about 500 litres I would guess. There's a little UV there, and a simple pump fed gravity out filter. I've got a little, this is actually a planting tray, but I've turned it upside down to use it as a cover, and it's got this sort of media inside. Loads of those, and then that's constantly aerating as well. So we've got constant aeration. This is about 20 litres per minute of air going into this. Not as much, but it's not. It's a smaller body of water. No plants in this one yet. I may add them, I'm not sure. But there's quite a lot of fake plants in here. I do like fake plants better than real ones at the moment, because they're quite frankly much less hassle. And yeah, this is the same pump, 5,000 litres per hour, which is too much for this little box filter, so I've had to make several T's off, so lots of the water in here is circulating around, and only some of it is going through the filter. But it works pretty well, and the fish in here are doing very well, and that's all good. So there you have it, really. Those are my two ponds. This is the main pond, 2,000 gallon main pond, and that's the smaller growing on pond, which hasn't changed for quite a while because it's been working extremely well, and I'm very pleased with it. So there you are. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.